Tech and Learning University. This is part of our ongoing series where we interview district leaders from around the country to talk about how they're dealing with the new remote learning issues and that all of us are going through right now. So very happy to have today with us Ryan Imbriale from Baltimore County Public Schools. He is the Director of Innovative Learning at Baltimore County. So Ryan, welcome, and maybe you can talk a little bit, introduce yourself, and maybe talk a little bit about the what Baltimore County is working on now to roll out remote learning.
Hi, good to see you. Appreciate the opportunity just to share some of the work that we're doing here in Baltimore County. I've been in this role now for a little over 7 years, and this is definitely new territory for us. It's new territory for everyone. We are currently closed down as a system, and here in the state of Maryland, the governor did order of a state of emergency. So we've reacted to that like all the rest of the school districts in the state. But we have been preparing for this prior to this announcement. It came quickly for us, but luckily, as a large district, we have a support structure built around ensuring that we can provide resources to parents and resources to students. In the Baltimore County Public Schools, we are 1-to-1 grades 6 through 12, where students take those devices home. So when this came down, we made sure we reacted and worked with all of our secondary schools, our middle schools and high schools, to ensure that as best as possible, those students who were in school last Friday were able to pack up their device with their charger and the other materials that they needed, and that they took that information, that equipment home with them. And then at our elementary schools, we are 1-to-1 in the classroom, grades 3, 4, and 5, and then we're 2-to-1 in our lower grades. And so the reaction to that has been a little different. Those students didn't take their devices home. So we've really tried to look at this initially through an equity lens and trying to figure out how do we provide resources both that are print and digital as best as possible. And so for all of our students, we've worked hard to provide resources both embedded in our learning management system, so our teachers could continue to do those kinds of things that would allow students to maintain some sense of normalcy when it comes to English language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, even physical education, and the arts. And so in some cases that works great from a digital standpoint, especially with our secondary students who have Wi-Fi access at home and internet access. And then we know we have this subset of population of students who don't have that access. So on our website, front-facing, really open, available to anybody in the public, we've also provided resources that could be downloadable and printable if we have access to that, if parents have access.
That's a really great point. The equity issue, I know, is a big one for a lot of schools. So can you talk a little bit more about how you're supporting your teachers? Obviously, there's probably a lot of PD that needs to take place, and then also related to that, the rest of your community. So the parents who maybe have to stay home from work now, and their children are home. Can you talk a little bit about how you're supporting those communities?
Yeah, I use my own example. I've got 4 daughters, and so working during the day takes on a different meaning when you have kids around and you're balancing everybody's needs for internet access and everyone's needs for access to technology. So I know I'm not the only dad who's dealing with these kind of challenges, and so I think that's something that we're all facing right now. I will say that in the state of Maryland, we did a 2-week halt when it comes to public education. So right now, we are working on 2 different plans. One plan is the assumption that we would go back to school as normal on March 30th, which is after the 2-week time frame. The other plan is that would need to be extended to some extent. And there are obviously variables as to how long that might need to be. In the immediate, what we're asking our teachers to do is, as best as possible, if they feel comfortable, check in, send emails, check into Schoology, be present if students have questions or if parents might have questions. But we're trying to approach it from the standpoint that, in essence, it's almost like they're on a spring break. There's some time off right now where we're trying to get adjusted and trying to figure out what the landscape is going to look like moving forward. I do think that if we get into a position where this extends beyond that, we will significantly ramp up our opportunities to provide online professional development for all of our teachers on how to really bridge the gap. How do you go from a learning experience that was, for the most part, face-to-face in a classroom and had digital elements and access to a learning management system to a place that is relying on a learning management system and these digital elements and potentially conferencing tools in order to have things like office hours as a teacher, or what opportunities do we have for a teacher to potentially video lessons and then have those lessons available for students to view, watch, and comment on, at the same time always reflecting on this equity lens, because we do have that challenge. And it's not just a challenge for our students who are most in need. It's also a challenge for a large population of our ESOL students. How do we ensure that we can still service those students and provide that translation that might be necessary for them in some ways? And as a big suburban school district, we actually also have some remote areas that are challenged to still get reliable internet access. So all of those things are part of the conversation right now. And I know we're not alone. I think everyone is challenged with what potentially could be the new normal. And we're trying to figure out how do we navigate that right now.
Yeah, that's great. So I like your point of how you're approaching it. Maybe we'll open, but just in case, let's have a plan. Any other advice for other districts that are, they've got, and I'm talking to quite a few, have some skeletal ideas in place, but that need to be ramped up quite quickly? Any advice for them to help them navigate this and to maybe get ready for this longer term remote learning environment?
Well, I would say a couple things. One, parents are amazing and students are amazing. So I think one of the things that we've learned just in a few days is kids want to keep learning when they have that opportunity. Students love structure. And I think the more that we can, as educators in this environment, provide structure around what a student's day could look like, it's helpful in whatever subject area that might be. Understanding the nuances of 4 daughters at home and all those other challenges that go on. I also think that school districts need to be reminded about all of those other services. So if you can provide a conferencing solution for students in a classroom, then you should be able to provide that same conferencing students service for counseling and supports that students might need during these times, because all of those related services are still so important, and in some cases are even more important during this time.
That's an excellent point. And I wondered about that too. And obviously, food and nutrition being part of it, it's so many moving parts here. So yeah, this is terrific advice. I really appreciate your time, and we'll keep in touch and love to hear more about how you're approaching this. Thank you, Ryan, for taking the time today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.